My name is Rebecca, and all my life I have been proud of my appearance. I like to feel admired, and I always thought that my outward image was a reflection of the success I had achieved. Growing up in a small town in Texas, I learned early on that beauty and status were the quickest way to be respected, and ultimately, to be loved. Over the years, I had built a life that many women would envy. I had a successful husband, a huge house in a prestigious neighborhood, and a wardrobe overflowing with designer clothes. Every day I would wake up, look at myself in the mirror, and choose the perfect outfit. Italian leather handbags, sparkling jewelry, high heels, everything was a symbol of what I had become. And of course, I never went out without my sunglasses. Big, dark, elegant. They were my signature. They made me feel protected, inaccessible, almost invulnerable. I was also a devoted Christian, or so I thought. I went to church every Sunday with my husband, John, and made generous donations to parish projects. I felt good about myself. After all, I didn't harm anyone, and I also gave back something to the community. I firmly believe that, despite my love for luxury and the beautiful things in life, my heart was in the right place. But there was something deeper that I was ignoring. Every day, in my constant pursuit of beauty and wealth, I was losing sight of the true purpose of my faith. I thought that declaring myself a Christian, praying and going to Mass was enough to be accepted among the righteous. Yet in my vanity, I couldn't see how far I was from what Jesus had taught us. It was a morning like any other. The sun was shining through the windows of our villa, and I was getting ready for a day of shopping downtown Dallas. I had already selected my outfit of the day, an elegant white silk suit paired with a pair of Jimmy Choo shoes. Naturally, the Chanel sunglasses were already on my head, ready to cover my eyes with a touch of mystery. John had already left for a business meeting, leaving me alone. I was used to this luxurious solitude. It didn't bother me. I turned on the coffee machine and sat at the kitchen table, absent-mindedly flipping through a fashion magazine. Then everything changed. A sudden pain pierced my chest. It was like a stab that took my breath away. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't respond. The coffee cup slipped from my hands and shattered on the floor. I didn't understand what was happening. My body became heavy, and my vision began to darken. Then, suddenly, the pain disappeared. But I was still there. Or at least a part of me was. I looked down and saw my body lying on the floor, motionless, eyes wide open. It was a surreal vision. I was floating above it, as if I were as light as air. I was dead. I don't know how much time passed, but the next thing I remember was finding myself in a long line. In front of me were hundreds, maybe thousands of people. Some were in tears, others looked terrified. I, on the other hand, was still convinced that I had nothing to worry about. I had been a good Christian, I had lived a successful life, and I had done my part for the church. Surely I would be welcomed into heaven. As I moved forward in the line, the tension grew. I saw a huge angel standing in front of a portal of blinding light. He was majestic, with imposing wings and penetrating eyes that seemed to probe the soul of every person. There was no need for words. Every person passing in front of him was judged with a single gesture. Some were accompanied toward the light of paradise, while others, without a word, were sucked into a dark doorway that opened beneath them, disappearing into the abyss. When it was my turn, there were no questions. The angel stared at me for a moment, then with a simple hand movement indicated my destination: hell. There had been no explanation, no dialogue, just the cold verdict that overwhelmed me in an instant. I felt the ground beneath me open up and a dark abyss sucked me in. In panic, I managed to scream, "Wait, why? What did I do wrong?" The angel looked at me with an impassive gaze and replied, his voice echoing in the air, "You hid your soul. Those glasses you never took off are a sign of this. They hide who you really are, and the clothes you wear, so rich and vain, tell the story of the life you chose to live. A life of appearance, not of substance. I cannot judge what I cannot see, and you came here hiding your true essence. You have become unjudgeable." Those words struck me like lightning. It wasn't just a matter of clothing or style, but of my attempt to hide who I truly was. I was dragged down with devastating speed, as if an invisible force was sucking me into the deepest abyss. The heat enveloped me immediately, a heat I had never felt before, not only physical, but spiritual, burning from within, as if the fire was not only licking my skin, but also consuming my soul. Despair was palpable. When I finally touched the bottom of that infinite darkness, I was greeted by a dense, smoky fog, made not only of fire, but of anguish and regret. The ground beneath my feet seemed alive, pulsating with suffering, and around me rose heart-wrenching screams. They were inhuman screams, cries of repentance and supplication, echoes of ruined lives and broken souls. The incessant lament of those imploring God's mercy, never receiving it. Pain was everywhere, in the suffocating heat, in the darkness that seemed to grip me in a vice, and in those voices. I couldn't believe I was really there. Me, a Christian, a woman who had always thought she was living rightly, had been thrown into hell. As I wandered among the desperate souls, trying to understand how I had ended up in that place, I saw familiar faces. My heart froze. They were people I knew from my church. People who, like me, had always thought they were destined for heaven. I approached, trembling. A woman I remembered well. She had always been elegant, impeccable. And even now, in the midst of that hell, she still wore her sparkling jewelry. The pearls adorning her neck shone in the sinister light of the flames. "Did you end up here too?" I asked her, hoping for an explanation, for a comfort I couldn't find. She nodded slowly with a bitter smile that betrayed her resignation. "Yes," she replied with a broken voice, "and I know perfectly why. I thought I was smart. I lived a life full of luxuries, and every day I wore these sunglasses to hide who I really was. When I died, I believed they would serve me even in judgment, to mask my sins, to hide my soul. But it was all for nothing. Judgment comes for everyone, and you cannot escape it." I looked at her in disbelief. "How can sunglasses do such a thing?" I asked, unable to fully understand. The woman laughed, but it was an empty laugh, devoid of joy. "It's not about the glasses themselves, it's what they represent. We lived a life of appearances, of masks. We hid behind expensive clothes, shiny accessories, and empty words. We tried to present the world with a perfect image, but inside we were full of lies, of superficiality. These glasses were just a symbol of our refusal to reveal who we really were. We lived pretending, and now we are here, paying the price for our lies." Those words hit me like a punch to the stomach. It was true. Every day of my life had been built around the image I wanted to project to others, the appearance I meticulously maintained. My faith, even that, had become part of that image. It had never been authentic, but just another way to appear respectable. The designer clothes, the jewelry, and yes, even those sunglasses I wore as if they were part of me, were just another way to hide my insecurity, my vanity, my lack of humility. With a growing sense of despair, I tried to take off my glasses, but I couldn't. They were stuck to my face as if they had become part of my body, a part of my corrupted soul. I pushed, pulled, but they didn't move. They were glued to me like an indelible mark of my past life. The more I tried to free myself, the more I realized how trapped I was, not only by the glasses themselves, but by everything they represented. They were the symbol of my vanity, my superficiality, and now I could no longer hide behind them, but at the same time, I couldn't free myself from them. I was a prisoner of my own appearance, unable to show who I really was, and unable to be judged for what I could have been. I fell to my knees, tears streamed down my face, and I began to pray desperately. "God, please, I was wrong. I didn't realize how far I was from you. I lived for earthly things, for luxury and beauty, but now I see how empty all of this is. Please forgive me. Forgive me." At that moment, as I knelt on the ground amidst the fire and smoke of hell, with the screams of damned souls echoing all around, something changed. I felt a sudden silence, as if the world had stopped for an instant. There was no more noise nor pain. I felt a presence, a bright, pure, and warm light that enveloped me. I looked up and saw a figure walking toward me. It was Jesus. I couldn't believe it. Tears were still streaming down my face, and everything inside me was trembling. But his presence was reassuring, enveloping. The light he emitted was not just physical. It was as if it penetrated directly into my heart, bringing me back to a peace I had never known. Jesus approached, and with eyes full of compassion, he looked at me. "Rebecca," he said gently, "it is never too late for forgiveness. But you must understand that it is not the outward appearance that leads to salvation. It is not your clothes, nor your donations to the church, nor your attendance at Mass. It is the heart. It is the sincerity with which you live your faith, and the love with which you treat others." His words were like balm for my wounded soul. I felt naked before him, not because of my clothing, but because I couldn't hide anything of my true nature. My sunglasses, which I had always considered a symbol of elegance and mystery, now seemed heavy and cumbersome. They had become a barrier between me and my soul, between me and God. Jesus continued, "The glasses you wear don't just hide your eyes, but also your soul. They are a symbol of your attachment to the world, to material things, to vanity. But true beauty, true faith, is in the heart. You must free yourself from everything that holds you back and distracts you from my light." I tried again to take off my glasses, but they seemed glued to my face. They had become part of me, a physical symbol of my arrogance and my desire to appear perfect in the eyes of the world. My hands trembled as I pulled, but I couldn't free them. Jesus came closer and with infinite tenderness placed a hand on my face. "Let me help you," he said. And with a single gentle gesture, he removed the glasses from my face. The relief was immediate. I felt as if a huge weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I took a deep breath, and for the first time I felt truly seen. There was nothing left to hide. Jesus looked at me with those eyes full of love and mercy. "Now you can see," he said, "but there is still much to learn. To enter the kingdom of heaven, it is not enough to declare yourself a Christian. You must live a life of humility, compassion, and sincere faith. Luxury, vanity, and material things are just distractions. You must live for what truly matters." His words struck deeply. All my life I had thought that faith was something superficial, something that could be shown through outward actions. But at that moment I realized how wrong I had been. Jesus looked at me once more and then spoke with a sweetness I had never known. "Rebecca, today I give you a second chance. You will return to earth, but this time with a new awareness. You will have the opportunity to change your life, to live differently, to focus on what is truly important. Remember, it is not the designer clothes or the material things that will bring you closer to God. It is your soul, your faith, your ability to love and forgive." I felt overwhelmed by infinite gratitude. Jesus was truly offering me, a woman so immersed in vanity, a new opportunity for life. I knew I couldn't waste it. "My Lord," I said with a trembling voice, "I promise you I will not return to my old life. I will abandon luxury and vanity and focus on what is truly important. Please guide me on the path toward a simpler life, but full of faith and love." Jesus smiled. "It will not be easy, Rebecca. The world you live in is full of temptations, and you will have to fight every day against the desire to return to your old ways. But if you follow me sincerely, you will find the peace you have always sought." With those words, I felt enveloped by the light once more. The scene around me began to fade, and I felt as if I was going back, ascending from the darkness of hell toward the light of life. When I woke up, I found myself lying on the floor of my kitchen, exactly where I had fallen. My body was intact. The pain in my chest had disappeared and everything seemed normal. But nothing was the same for me anymore. John had come home and was looking at me worriedly. "Rebecca, what happened? You fell. I called an ambulance. Are you okay?" I got up slowly, feeling as if I had been reborn. I looked at John with new eyes. "I'm fine, John. I'm great. But there is something we need to change." John looked at me confused. "Change what?" I looked into his eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I felt an authentic connection. There was no longer that barrier made of material expectations and appearances. "Our life," I replied, "is based on wrong things. We have lived for luxury, for appearance, but we have never truly cultivated what matters. We need to change." John was even more confused, but over the next few days I explained everything to him. I told him about my encounter with Jesus, my experience in hell, and the new opportunity that had been granted to me. It wasn't easy for him to understand at first, but eventually, he also saw that something had to change. We decided to sell our big house and move to a smaller, more modest home, just right for the two of us. We wanted to live a simpler life, without being slaves to appearances. We began to focus on what truly mattered: our faith, our love, and our spiritual growth. I gave up designer clothes, lavish jewelry, and of course sunglasses. Instead, I began dedicating myself to prayer and reading the Bible with new intensity. My life finally became authentic. Now, years after that experience, I feel the need to share my story with the world. I know there are so many others like me, people who think they are on the right path just because they declare themselves Christians, but who are actually trapped in appearances and material things. I want them to know that true happiness, true peace, are not found in the things of this world. The biggest house, the most expensive clothes, the admiration of others, all of this is ephemeral. What really matters is living a life in which faith is at the center, a life in which our goal is not to be admired by others, but to be accepted by God. If I could convey one message, it would be this: do not let appearances deceive you. Do not think that declaring yourself a Christian is enough to be saved. True faith requires humility, sacrifice, and a sincere heart. Do not hide your soul behind the dark glasses of vanity. Live a life that honors God in everything you do. Today, John and I live a modest life, but one full of meaning. We are no longer slaves to luxury or to others' expectations. We have found a faith community that supports and inspires us, and every day we commit ourselves to live according to the values that Jesus taught me that day. If there is one thing I have learned, it is that it is never too late to change. It is never too late to abandon the things that distance us from God and to embrace a life of true faith and love. And if I, who was so deeply immersed in vanity, can be saved, then anyone can do it. Live with faith, love sincerely, and do not let material things overshadow your soul. The true treasure is not of this world, but is found in the kingdom of heaven. The story I have told you is just a testimony of how life can change when we put aside the superfluous and focus on what is truly important. This experience has taught me that true wealth is not what we accumulate on earth, but what we build within ourselves through love, compassion, and sincere faith. I hope these words can inspire anyone who reads this story to reflect on their own life, to ask themselves if they are living according to the true teachings of Christ, and to make the necessary changes to be not only Christians in name but also in heart. Life, when lived with authentic faith, becomes richer than any earthly luxury could ever offer. Thank you so much for staying with us until the end. If you enjoyed the video, I invite you to share it with 2 Christian friends. By doing so, you will receive a blessing and help spread God's word. If you haven't done so yet, I kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you don't miss videos like this, which we post several times a week. See you soon in the next video.